Hi friends, welcome back to ARC Tutorials. We are continuing with our expert Angular interview series. This is part 6. In today's episode, I'm bringing you top interview question and answers on Angular directives. If you have any doubts, any queries on the questions that we cover in this episode, feel free to drop them in the comment section. I'll be happy to provide you free help. Before we get started, friends, there's a lot of hard work I'm putting in compiling these questions. So please subscribe to my channel to keep encouraging and supporting me. Let's get started with Angular Directives top interview question and answers. So the first question is, this is absolutely going to be asked in any of your Angular interviews. What are directives? So directives uh, are directive is a functionality in Angular which will help us to add behavior to an existing DOM element. We can add or update, or we can create custom directives. We can use built-in directives to extend the behavior of any element. Now that element can be anything. It can be a link, a row, button, image, anything. How do we do it? We import to create a directive. We will import a directive module from Angular core, and then using @directive decorator, we will define the director selector name, directive selector name, and then we'll create the directive class. We'll come to this in detail step by step in the fifth question of the series, but stay tuned to it. For now, all you have to understand is what are directives? Directives is an Angular functionality which is used to add behavior to existing DOM elements. Now, can you tell me the difference between component and directive? Now, in short, a component is a directive with a template. The component is also a directive with a template. Now, component always has a template. Any template. It can be an inline template. It can be a URL. Directive doesn't use view or a template. We define the component using @component. We define directive using @directive. Components are used to create UI widgets, whereas directives are used to create behavior to an existing DOM element, like on mouse over, what should happen, when you step out of the field, what should happen, etc. Now, what are the different types of directives? There are three types of directives: component directive, structural directive, and attribute directives. Components, we have seen it in the second part. So please, if you haven't checked out all the previous parts, please do so. So there are three main kinds of directives: components, structural directives, and attribute directives. Components we have already seen. Structural directives are nothing but which can change or update the layout of the screen, of the view. Like for example, a for loop or a if else. Those are called structural directives. Now what are attribute directives? So attribute directives will change the behavior of an element, like a look and feel, appearance, etc. So now we talked about structural directives. So NG4 is an example of structural directive because it will change the templates look and the structure. So what is NG4 directive? What is the purpose of it? So we use NG4 to display each item in the list. So if you have a list or an JSON object or an array, let's say in this case example users, we will use NG4 to loop all the each item and display it. Think of it like a similar to for loop in any programming language. Similarly, now on the same notes, ngif is also a structural directive because it can change, make the element appear or hide the element based on true or false condition. This is similar to if else condition in programming. Take an example here. When we say ngif equal to user dot age is greater than 18, that means we are putting a ngif condition here and checking show this paragraph only when that condition is true. Again, like I said, it's a structural directive which will tell the user to show or hide based on true or false condition. Now, this is a very, very important question. How do you create a new directive, or how do you create a custom directive? So we can generate the directive using Angular CLI command line interface. The command to generate the directive is ng generate directive followed by directive name. When you give this command, it will generate a new directive with two files. One, it will create the directive, and the other, it will create the test file, respective test file, which is .spec.ts file. So remember, what is the command to generate directives in CLI? Ng generate directive followed by directive name. Now, here we are deep diving into some little code in terms of seeing how to create a custom attribute directive. Okay, so we will do it in three steps. One, first we will generate the directive. We will give it a class name. Second, we will apply the attribute directive to the element, to the DOM element, whichever we want the behavior. In this case, whenever we apply the highlight directive, that element will get highlighted. And finally, we will run the application to see the behavior. So first step is to create the directive. So whenever you are asked in interviews, you can just give this example. So the first step is to create the directive. So we can type the command ng generate directive followed by space highlight. That is the name I'm giving. It will generate two files. One will be highlight directive.ts. That is the file we are referencing here. Now, if you see the code, it has already the code which says import directive element ref, and then at the rate directive selector name is app highlight, since our name of the directive is highlight. Then we are writing export class highlight directive, and we are just saying element dot native element dot style dot background color equal to red. Using whenever we will use this directive, the background color of that element will become red. That is the functionality of this directive. The second step is to apply it. So to the paragraph, we are applying the directive app highlight. This is the same name which we gave here in the directive selector. So this is the name you will use in the directive. So when you give the selector name as app highlight, and similarly we'll passing it here paragraph app highlight. This will highlight it into the red color. Now just do a ng serve and you should see your application element having red color. Run the application. Let me know if you have any doubts. That brings us to the end of Angular directives top interview question and answers. Prepare them well, go back, go through all the questions. Let me know if you have any doubts or questions. I will be happy to help you for free. Please subscribe to my channel to keep supporting and encouraging me. In the next part, I'm going to cover all the top interview questions about Angular routing. So don't miss it. See you on the next episode. Thank you.